I have declared 15 years ago, 10 years and more than 10 years ago, my title as a monarch of Earth, and I have admitted myself as open heart to this Earth to provide assistance for reducing the level of misunderstanding of each other, where I found myself basically becoming in a process gradually this level of functioning. My initial intention was to reduce misunderstanding, to reduce a level of not misunderstanding, but a level of not understanding, or level of differences, because because there was such harsh political polarization to East and West wing. After with Berlin Wall was taken out, but people were still living in defined and crafted by completely different political systems, for what people cannot be blamed. And I thought it would be useful to bring forward conversation that's going to make us to feel less isolated, and will bring forward issues that we would all like to talk about in times ahead. We needed to become planet again. My work, I devoted my work. It wasn't at the beginning my work. I just wanted to take out that prejudice that I thought is there. It was more than prejudice. It became a question of it became a matter of recognizing that we are somehow completely differently crafted. So it started to be a questioning about mind constructs, about value systems, about cultural identities, about territorial differences, understanding why we are so different beyond political regimes. Political regimes were nothing, actually, versus how territories and times were crafted as differently. Political regimes are nothing versus the actual fabric of territorial differences and cultural differences upon which people have been crafted in millenniums. It became a matter of something much more organic, much more substantial. The way how we are. It became who we are. It became who we have been. And then it became who we can be and who we cannot be. And then it became gradually, I wouldn't call it directive, I would call it recommended or prescribed. It has become constitutional. It became the code of human. We ended up discussing what human is and what human would not be. And then I realized, well, why we would expect that human would be ready-made. That is not how we understood it or how we understand it. We don't understand human as ready-made. We all understand human as a work in process. And then we expect to be somewhere there crafted for us and waiting for us to reach it. Well, obviously it is harder than that. We have to craft it and reach it each time and leave it for our kids so they can continue after us. While watching how we struggle and how we tried to bring the best of that human so they can do like that in their time. And humanity continue walking. as that is what we do here. We make humanity to walk ahead for another period, for another generation. And it seems that it is as hard as you have to start it all over again. Because everyone jump everywhere, everyone wants to say whatever, everyone wants to think whatever, everyone wants to do whatever, and it feels like you always have to defend what has been accomplished. Apart of the fact that you also find yourself always in some kind of new set of challenges. Well, in previous century, the challenges, the reason for two world wars were the money and the political powers and impositioning. Hollywood emerged. Some big money started to circulate. As we understand, also privacy became an issue after the launching of satellites, which some of us were not even aware of. With telephone emergence, privacy became an issue as well. And one would think that the entire political regimes emerged because someone wanted to use telephone industry and to use telephones for as a big thing, and everything started to circulate about information and about telephone industry. I would begin to think that even James Bond was invented, and espionage was so much important all of a sudden because for the sake of espionage itself, for the sake of game. It is like someone is really trying to make out of technology a game as well, and bring this planet forward as one big theatrical, technological, theatrical platform, always circulating around the events that technology would would deliver. In a similar way, today everything became about drones, and everything became about internet and about Facebook, and like there is nothing else that we should be talking or thinking about. And it's all about also it is about obsolete systems. And again about technology and systems. Again about someone talking about artificial intelligence like we have nothing else to talk about. So someone is trying to bring everything to be around the new technology, and like each time new technology is like taking over everything else, like we have nothing else to think about. People are talking today more about artificial intelligence than how to solve the poverty, which should be our ambition, equal as it was for Chinese 20, 30 years ago when they said we are going to solve the poverty on our territories, and they have solved it. Now, I thought that today humanity is going to say we are going to solve the poverty on the planet in the same way how Chinese have done it. Goes together. If you prefer order in your life, then you would, of course, prefer organized society, because that is how it goes. And now we all want to talk about America being and West being the latest accomplishment of the civilization. But when you look at them, can you actually say that? Yeah, we don't have to admit, Europe, that the entire Renaissance was indeed, as they are claiming, infused by the presence of Far East countries, traveling on the territories and becoming us. Even if we don't understand that, we still have to defend the formulation of organized society. How far you, Europe, have managed to deliver the concept, the sense, and the skill of organized society. I'm not talking as a predator. I'm not talking like an evil witch. I'm talking in the way how you want to organize your house. How far you have brought that in the society as well. how far it is important for you to bring that into society as well. And most importantly, how far you have managed to bring that into society as well. And when you go in more east, it's getting worse and worse. Today, America is nothing worse than South America. I mean, give it 10 years. Even without even right now, even in last century, they were nothing different than South America. Just it looked more theatrically polished. It was nothing more different. It was, as we understand, all of the same cartels, and woman was enslaved on both parts, on both Americas, and woman is enslaved everywhere in the world. This world just pretends. It is not like that. They're just playing the theater. Woman was enslaved in last century, and woman is enslaved in this century. And that is where we became already one as a planet with Far East countries, because they are certainly bringing the matrix of that problem as well. They're bringing the problems, not just the solutions. I don't know how much they are willing to talk about their problems and issues in real terms, or how much they can afford to talk about anything really, because they're squared now by the latest dimensions of organized capital. But the fact is, we are already one planet. And what I wanted to say is, are we going to accept the technology to run us rather than us to run the technology? And for with the same logic, can you stop talking about artificial intelligence before you actually start talking about actual intelligence and actual human protocol? Because otherwise, you would be suspected that you are trying to categorize human as artificial intelligence. And that some creatures in the forests or under the ground are willing to declare human as some kind of far away organic earlier beginnings, where human was hardly any of human, and would be questioning if it was human at all. Let's start thinking that is how maybe a reptilian society have decided to call human. And instead that we talk about human civilization and concept and protocol human, we end up being discussed as artificial intelligence by the reptilians. I suspect that is exactly where the situation in England is escalating. And I'm going to find here not Serbia, but England matrix to that entire event. It is time to see Britannia with higher attention than presumed. We have been assuming that initial civilization started at some kind of Mesopotamia level. And then we have assumed that that phenomenon of Big Bang would leave most of the territories less relevant. But what if our real Big Bang is actually Britannia? Or, most correctly, territories that initially have been playing the pra-continent, and that is basically all of the earlier societies would have similar reference as it is, for example, India, Far East countries, New Zealand, South America. So, to the extent that they bring very old and very strongly defined civilizational setting upon which they continue to be influenced and crafted in one way or another. Talking only about Big Bang and Central Ancient Plateau is not going to be just good enough to bring us, to assist us to understand our present existence. It is not sufficiently describing the situation, and it is not sufficiently covering the issues. So I really have problem to understand what is older here. Is it Britannia or Serbia? Is it Serbia older? Or we have missed to notice what's going on in Britannia as well. And the question does not become anymore who is older, but how different we are. Because I find us much more at the crafting protocol, but they are much more at the organic protocol. And more we talk about lack of beauty, more they talk about being reptilians or little people in the organic format. More I talk about improving humanity, more they talk about organic humans. And I end up being the Barbie, and they end up being the patrons. And that is giving me a completely opposite result of what I expected to deliver. The Constitution of Earth presumes ongoing development of human concept. Not in some kind of losing humanity, some kind of going into some kind of electronic or robotic version. Certainly not that kind of development. But I have said many times, development in regard of quality of lifestyle and way of thinking and way of relating, especially relationships, became now matter. The social aspect became now matter of our improvement. The way how we relate to kids, for example, most of us have been found still very much here having problem to manage the time between building yourself and career as a woman, and being as a woman also very much present in organizing the household and everything else, food supply and all of the rest, food preparation. It's basically everything on woman now, despite the developed technology. And having quality to have quality time with kids, and well, they're still kids, of course. That became usually when they're younger. You also want to catch up, building more of career profiling yourself, being more professionally devoted, and you know, and kids are, and you miss more having time with kids. So I thought that is the area where we need to talk much more and to be more present when it comes to relationships, improving our relationships with each other, improving quality of life in any single aspect, as in most general perspective we are actually doing. But then all of a sudden, increasingly, we become bombarded with that sense of losing everything that we have accomplished. Because some societies and some people started to talk about some other matters. And in times when technology is here to allow to women and to families to have the best time on their lives, some people get forward and talk about something else that we just, it would appear no one would find necessary to talk about, or no one would like to talk about. And then I needed to talk about all of it. Because no one else, I got impression, would know how to talk about it. And my approach became unique, although the most natural, one would argue. The fact is that we as a planet, and we as a people, and we as a humanity do not have place where we can talk like this. There is no prescribed position on this planet or interface civilization on this planet where we can talk like this. In some kind of more round up platform, not just when they're doing interviews with various professionals that are professionals in some very specific area, and then we listen to hours speaking about certain areas. As West became very much crafted by profiling itself in specific areas and being professionals in specific areas, but they miss the overall picture. And the discussion does not get there. And the planet ends up missing this level of overall insight, overall perspective taken over the civilization. In the way how some males in last century have done it, yet with extremely dry political language. Absolutely incapable to reach the substance of life itself, and I'm going to assume that is because they are males. And why my work is different than theirs is because I am female. And here we have to notice what a profound difference in political discussion when delivered by female and when delivered by male. Also, this fact that I have stone-like face, like on these statues in India somewhere. And because of that, people confuse my stony face with a question of genders. Because obviously they have never saw a woman with a stony face. So I would ask them why a man would be accepted when does have a stony face, but why woman would not be allowed to have a stony face. My grandmother of Serbia, which is her name was Budimka. She was having squared face. And it looked like stone face. But actually it is squared face. And it has nothing to do with gender. I'm telling you. It's just the shape of a face. I'm telling you, I never had problem with gender. I never questioned my gender. I never needed to question my gender. I never felt urged to think about such matters. For me, it was everything above the gender issues. And more important than the gender issues, it's this life itself. And most of us do not think that much about our gender. We think about our issues and problems and what we want to accomplish and what we want to become. And it doesn't exactly bring the gender question. It never was for me that any question. And I hate when you have made, after I brought my kids here, when you have made in their life to say so much about gender awareness. I hate that. That is a wrong approach. Because when you bring attention to something and then you start to manipulate their minds, and then became, as we understood, very much political. Because that is political question. That has been established that certain tribes want to downgrade. When they want to downgrade another male, that is how they talk about another male. That is male versus male. This is not about, it has nothing to do with females. It has to do with a male platform and how male fight each other. They fight each other by defeating another male. When they defeat another male, they defeat it by declaring him a female. It is totally male fight, and it has nothing to do with females, because females do not fight like that. But males fight like that. And you have brought here on Western Hemisphere that question much stronger than I ever was aware about it while living in my countries. It would maybe it would have been even shameful to say, but I wasn't aware at all about such kind of problems or issues. I was just not aware of it. Here, you make kids to be aware of it. That aware of what? To question the gender. Was there on earth to question? You set event on to question something. You open ground for enormous manipulation. And that is exactly what's happening around here. And I'm going to blame the so-called European sophisticated society deciding to deal with roaring people of my kind by stamping them like that, and then going away with the right to exploit my work. It has become excuse for exploitation of property rights to someone's work. In my case scenario, and I have discovered, and I have to point out again and again and again, that we pay attention how this present civilization, especially in Europe, build up versus raw men while they are declaring euro currency. That is very similar as how in Spain they are stabbing the bulls, and then they are Spanish people of a fiery nature. Well, the same absurdity is with the entire euro. They completely, I have not been aware how far they actually exist, the point of disassociating themselves from the raw nature, to the extent that they took for themselves a right to appropriate everything from the raw nature and discriminate them at the gender point as well as at the point of behavior. And then we have people that have issue with behavior, and they just don't have issues at all. I'm asking Europe today, can you really consider yourself as a defender of a civilization how I wanted to recognize you? Because I'm not today anymore convinced that you have deserved that title at all. As a matter of fact, as of today, I am taking away from you title of Central Civilizational Plateau. I have just realized you are a beginning of building that whole of what you have become now to this world. One big whole of criminal behavior, and which made you to stop developing because you have accommodated yourself to easy delivered by someone, to easy appropriation and easy development and easy accomplishment simply by stealing and appropriating from someone else. You have become the biggest school of the world for criminal behavior. And let's us being reminded that Nikola Tesla was being educated, was taking his principal education in Vienna, Austria, later on Germany as well, I would imagine. That is the center, that is the heart of Europe. That is what defines all of the Europe. And when I return my memory of my youth, I'm going to notice that I have been surrounded, even in high school, by some girls that were some kind of leaders in this kind of high school level of more kind of macho characters. Some girls would to step up there, and do you know how it has been measured their higher social scaling when they were to do shoplifting on the marketplaces where we were going throughout Yugoslavia after graduation in high school. I just remember that these girls that were holding that prestigious place of kind of leaders of wanting to implement themselves as leaders of the herd, were actually delivering their more preceding presence by being more rebellious. And in high school, you have that element that kids that are more rebels, get away with status of the best of. That is what built even Donald Trump as a character. And that became such a synonym for American society. I saw it in my high school. And I saw these females building their profile by being very much cool. They were cold-blooded shoplifters. And it was very cool because they were so much in control of the situation. They were just completely killing it. And you stand next to them and you look like an idiot. That was, I'm going to remind myself, the standard imposed Europe by that group, by that collective. And today I'm speaking about Europe as a center of civilizational development. And today I'm revoking that statement because I have just established Europe, that you have nothing in common with me. And therefore, Europe, you would not have right even to declare that euro currency as yours, because it is fair to say that you exist as complete antipode to it. Europe exists as antipode to euro currency. Obviously, in the same way how in America, entire system exists against the synonym or symbol of their dollar. Because that dollar is not a reference to Donald Trump. That dollar is reference to that girl that is being positioned at a logo of Universal Pictures. Or it was Columbia Pictures, actually, yes. And very much reaching, actually, the protocol of Statue of Liberty. Well, it's not exactly Donald Trump. That woman is holding the Constitution. And is holding the torch with light. That is not exactly how we are going to find Donald Trump, isn't it? So who is actually the real symbol of America? Would it be Donald Trump or would it be Statue of Liberty? Same question for Europe. And who would be exactly today Europe, representing your entire historic heritage? Yourself or myself? As of yesterday, you little people of Europe, dare to set yourself above my positions, taking away from me my work as it means nothing. Sitting out there in Denmark and preaching about alliance, and yet going away with my work. And I continue to be held hostage somewhere in Ireland, while you, Europe, have awakened in your reincarnated new identity, polished and washed away. Europe, I'm taking away everything I have said about you. You will need to fight yet your fight, Europe. And it will start from the question. Define your currency and define how you relate to Ra people and who are Ra people. Europe will need to answer this question. And no, I'm not American. I just walked all the way to America. Have you not? Maybe you haven't, but clearly I have. Yet I'm not here today to defend America, or not just America. I'm here today to defend the world from going in whatever direction. And in that context, I just noticed the trouble in Europe. I just noticed Europe of unresolved problems. I noticed Europe as left behind, as not dealt with, and as not resolved. And that is, Europe caught my attention now. It just caught my attention. Europe is not for me anymore presumed matter of my heart. Now Europe is someone from a picture that I look at in 21st century and say something I was not aware of before. That is now Europe. That is now what Europe has become. Center of our attention again, but certainly not a ready-made point of certification. Not a ready-made point of certification. It is rather a land of criminals. As it is, we have to notice this entire planet. And one would ask from where we are supposed to start. Because we are soaking in criminal. This planet is soaking in criminal. So from where we are supposed to start? I decided to start from what we don't want to lose. And that is how I came to the title, The Code of Human and Human Civilization, because that is what we don't want to lose. Or a simple approach, one would argue. How the title emerged. A very simple question. What we don't want to lose. And then you confront, and then we confront the rest of the issues, and then they become issues. That is my message to Britannia. I have to distance myself a bit from flying in any direction, including the Chinese Far East countries. Although there is something there that I pick up as a very much genuine aspect of my character, and that is persistence, dedication, stubbornness, and efficiency, and also quite organized and disciplined approach, and recognizing, noticing importance of moral and ethics on some kind of grand scale within the legal systems they have, for example, and this kind of synchronization and harmonization of their entire existence. This is very much a matter of properly crafted socio-political system, which is in substance also legal order. In substance, above all of that, stands that star that I associate to very, very much. However, there is an aspect of it that I simply do not like at all, and that is not having limit how dirty they are going to get before they get clean. That is something I recognize also very much typical for Macedonian cultural setting here. They were willing to go that much into minus before they get into plus. I can't associate myself with it. My spine does not go that low. I'm not that flexible. I'm not that elastic. I'm much more stiff. I don't go that low before to get higher. I came here with gloves and I have not taken them out. I really don't know on what ground someone continued to talk of me as one use of gloves. First of all, I don't use, from my perspective, the picture gets completely different. I'm the one with gloves. and I do not use my gloves for one use. In other ways, any equipment I use is part of my identity and part of my personality. I am epitome of everything that would be in category of standard of temple statements, embodiment, and things like that, on much more permanent, absolute levels. I am a walking and talking monument myself. I do not bend. It bends upon me. Call me glove. I'm going to call that as a stupidity, detachment from reality, and absurdity. That is where you are at the moment. The aspect where I cannot find myself close to Chinese and Macedonian, for that matter, is how far they are ready to go low before they get high. That is where we profoundly differ from each other, and that is where I find myself not defined by the masses. That is where I further notice that Far East countries, especially Chinese culture, continue to be driven by their collective sentiment, and even less we get alike. Now, I don't know what various people have ended to call investment, but I'm going to assume to notice that we have different perspective of what means investment into future. For them, investment is to get lower before they get higher. For me, investment is steady line up. And I continue to believe that my approach is correct one. I'm going to notice their approach wrong, and I'm not going to accept it, neither I'm going to admit it. Speaking of admission, to my temple concept, my definition of temple, of what would be my temple, and what would be making my temple. I wouldn't be so rigid about this entire matter if I have not found myself being hit by such kind of collective alignments or alliance that have blocked completely my entire life and what I wanted to do with it. Have redirected it in different direction, and I have become their Formula One. Needless to say, I will never see myself as driven by someone else, since I'm the one catching the vibes for a day, or basically bringing my over complex personality to the general population in another day of conversation. It is very hard to accept that it has something to do with someone driving you, when it feels more as you are driving the humanity for another day. So let's start calling things properly. I'm going to ask my opposition to start calling things properly, or otherwise it would be declared that entire setting as misleading and misconceptual and mispresentation of the entire realm on which we live. And it sounds to me quite criminal as well, when it taken in perspective, the effect of it being appropriation completely of my identity, results of my work, and degree to which they have manipulated my entire life, including my decision making, and including the way how I have ended to bring my family, and how vulnerable it has become. It has become my family, including my kids, to their efforts to get their hands on on any of it. For me, that sounds as already a criminal. So we cannot call a civilization criminal a civilization. I'm going to find that this behavior is a breaking point. That is how far someone is ready to go low before it gets high. I'm going to find that equally associated with Kate Middleton, that has been found associated to certain neighbors of my previous apartment home, where I have found them producing dolls, little dolls, as the one being used for witchery. You know, when you use this kind of the sewing device, I'm sorry, I don't know English expression of it, for to stab needle. These little dolls that are used, as we have seen in certain horror movies, as a witchcraft, being used with little needles to be used for stabbing the doll, and obviously referring to a human being, which is witchcraft. Witchcraft. I have found that associated to affairs of her mother. So can we please investigate what mother of Kate Middleton was associated with? What kind of business they have been having? What brought Kate Middleton to be a family, prominent family, and to be considered for marrying William? Why I'm bringing this? I want to investigate how far this culture is present when someone needs to go that much low before it gets that much high. And how far that has to do with Far East countries. And ultimately with Macedonia. We don't talk here Serbia, we talk Macedonia, because I'm following this line of thinking, which I have been noticing surrounds me very much. How far families that came here were willing to save before they become investors and start buying everything around them with the element of evilness, because they needed to go so low. And then they spend the entire life punishing someone for their own decision making, for why they needed to go so low, and someone else was not going that low as they have decided. And then they end up punishing the others that have not been willing to go that low as they needed to go that low. And I'm going to find that Scorpio identity hidden there as well, evilness in its core. In the way how you find it, somehow you feel you find it embodied somewhere there in that China as well. That is very rich in witchery of all sorts. I'm going to find that directly connected to Macedonia before to find it as a second hand in Serbia. And I'm going to find Serbia closer to the spine effect. Unflexible spine. I have always found some element of vulnerability in that for some reason. And clearly, I'm not that wrong. I have found the entire historic heritage of bravery and glorification and nobleness and all of these grand performances at the point of principal stamp historic heritage houses very much as a question of spine. I will add here that I have established that a much more critical point here is the civilization itself than the code of human. And that is why I needed to enclose in the title the reference to civilization as well, because it does have a very strong place in making or delivering human itself. It is like matter of molding human, because human does not come as ready-made. Nothing comes ready-made. Even animals live first as littles with their parents, and then they learn. Especially when we talk about more complex forms of living, obviously, not one cell organisms. We talk about more complex forms, and in that context, it is important to bring in perspective how we bring the human forward, and how far that has become with times civilizational question, not just cultural question, but also civilizational question. I have to notice that today the entire discussion is returning to organic, to basic organics, because certain territories, of course, especially Asiatic, are much more directed to trading humanity, including Africa, Far East countries. We have here in the provinces of these territories very much a very low human rights, which means one thing: trading humans. And the entire planetary conversation today is returning to basics, to what kind of human animal we have on various territories, rather than to be bothered to discuss the systems that are crafting the human. No matter how far I insist on that, the prevailing numbers of population are insisting on the organic basics for nothing else but trading purposes. So I'm going to alert more developed countries, as it is America, Britannia, and even Europe, to stop bringing conversation to the basics, to the organics, because we might lose everything. It is time to accept, to take part of responsibility for where we go as a civilization, as a humanity, rather than to be selfishly focused only on your narrow-minded, grounded interests. I am surprised to be so much disconnected and detached from Europe, or to find Europe so much detaching from myself. I wasn't expecting that. I have given to Europe much more credit. And I continue to be very disappointed that Europe continued to drive to extremes. So I'm going to devote this especially to Europe, to notice in a more responsible manner where the humanity is going, while we continue to insist on extremes. And what that technically means. It technically means Europe. You are trading the humans, or you are returning, or we as a planet are returning at the points where human itself become trading point, rather than items that we use in our civilizational development as a humanity. We are reaching a point of time where human become traded items. That is what we need to confront now. And then you ask yourself, Europe, in what direction you are going. And so same question to Americans and to everyone that wants to call themselves a modern world. Because this is now going to be majorly responsibility of the modern world, as they have the powers to make things differently. And then of course I'm going to measure our territories by their capacity to bring themselves on this level of conversation. As if they cannot, then they are not going to be they are not going to be convenient to be for me to be associated to such territories. If they cannot bring themselves forward on these levels, then I cannot associate myself to these territories either. That is how it goes. It is not just the question where I will be or I am going to be. It becomes a matter of question what system I'm going to be surrounded by. And that's for me now became a very important question. or sitting on the positions where I am, where everything is melting down, and people are staring at this as they had never heard humans speaking before, as truly they haven't obviously. It is not, nothing is status quo, or I don't have a sentiment here that there is a status quo where I am at the moment. It's all sliding, moving, reshaping. And I would certainly not like to replace that with place where things would not be that much in a promise of moving. That would not be myself enough. And you would agree. Now that has become the actual question. No, I have become a subject as well, not just you and what you want to do and what you're doing. I have become subject with my own presence as well. And now we have a question. Are we matching or are we not matching? As a what I want to do versus what you want to do. And here we can also say it is very hard to assume that small territories where everyone can come and do whatever they want can be defined by a certain much more static or permanent definition. To the extent that they have become someone else's political design studio for quite some time. And before that, cultural design studio to various leaders positioned very often by international capital and international empires. For a very longer period of time, we have lost on these territories strong identity houses. So it would be inappropriate to speak of these territories as of strong identity houses when they are not being managed like that for a longer period of time. I think we rather reach here a Romulus and Rem positioning of Rome and the two lost imperial kids, of what I have been already talking enough. These territories would rather be handled as bastards, imperial bastards. And as a matter of fact, even President Tito obviously was in such category, as it was, for example, Hitler as well recognized. They somehow always try to find bastards as well to impose as leaders of their territories. So they continue to live under such kind of description as territories of bastards. Although in substance, that would be the wrong way to describe certain territories on permanent, especially the one that are having beginning associated with creation of humanity as a design studio of humanity. And you end up calling that place of bastards. Well, it is actually matrix itself. And that is going to be now the principal issue of this planet. How far the planet went out building on this kind of misconceptions and building floors like second, third floor, like building high buildings out there out of complete misconceptions. And then replacing the two buildings in America with one building in America. Why Americans would be shooting themselves in their foot, or someone else is shooting them like that. And everyone is talking about France not having that much important position in Europe or in the world. But I'm going to notice something similar between France and America at this very moment. They both ended to have one tower. Although I'm going to notice Statue of Liberty also exists as one tower. But I don't have impression that they have chosen to play female character for one tower. I think they have decided to play male character for one tower, and that is where we actually find doomsday in a promise of actually to be delivered. As that tower, I doubt refers to, in France, Tour de Fel. I doubt it refers to a female. I'm going to assume the same message now delivered in America. And we are going to be concerned for our kids. So I'm going to ask you, as I have asked 10 years ago, look after our kids. Look after our kids. Look after your kids. We have to look after our kids. Because there is a madness rolling on this planet. And we have established who is in charge of that madness. To the extent that both America and Russia are plugging in Temple of Alexander, and they have calculated properly, nicely to, via Alexander, take over the entire monarchy, the entire Mediterranean, therefore. I have to notice that they actually have managed to do so. And I'm going to find that point of complete laughability. What is laughable here is that someone is so much dedicated to such scale of refabrication of reality itself. And here I question daring of someone to walk on tiny ice and bring the entire planet with them. I'm not sure I would call that bravery. Daring for sure, but not bravery. I'm going to call it foolishness. And certainly with enormous damaging effects. First of all, to put someone in that much of a perspective is rather annoying and disturbing. And certainly nothing of glorious. I think in such way they have much more damaged the character than managed to work towards the character. After all, you can celebrate a character only if you play it by its best. But if you make out of character a criminal setting, then you have not managed to celebrate the temple, and you have damaged the temple itself. I have argued today that none of that is going to be your question, first of all, because when it comes to some kind of civilizational setting, we are going to talk about matrix and then of the overall civilizational setting from this female perspective, and I today am bringing this kind of European version of it. And certainly Macedonia is that crossing momentum where you find the previous matrix societies delivering in rather symbolic way equally the child that later on becomes of the Western world, some kind of beginning of our realization of that the other world, which is north and west. It turned to be the case. But we have to bring this story in most appropriate and most correct way, or we are losing the foundations and stability of the entire planet. To synchronize the two plateaus is going to be always a very important event. Here I recognize now our territories, that is Southeast Europe, as well as Greece and Balkan Peninsula, very much, especially therefore here Macedonia historic heritage, Macedonia and Serbia for that matter, that have managed to bring such much more archaic historic setting on the territories. become in the same time that centerpiece of what famously become recognized historically as a black and white phenomenon, and that sums to the protocol mother and son. We have to understand now that symbolic accordingly in such way and no any other way. Therefore, I'm going to update what I was talking about actual imperial bloodline that was not bringing that much information. It was certainly showing certain direction of directing our attention to certain momentum, but it was not enough informational. Now this is bringing further information, and that is what that we talk about, basically matrix of old civilizations versus the what would appear as a new child um, of North and West world, although now we can argue that we would rather speaking about letter H here than about mother and child, because we have established that North Pole does have its history, although it has been erased because of the Ice Age, but that does not mean that they are not old enough as a territorial plateau. And since there have been found pyramids on northern hemisphere as well sufficiently, it would be inappropriate to give them some kind of second grade presence on the planet where they are equally old as the rest of the worlds. So here I have to depart from mother-son protocol and replace it with a black and white event. Black much more typical for South Hemisphere and white more typical for North Hemisphere. And here I find myself stepping up on North Hemisphere on the white side of the events, and I find the black on the other side of what I am as a person, and that is matching much more my identity as well. The blue protocol is much more defining, Nordic white blue is much more defining of my identity than the hot temper driven south. Although I bring this kind of rigidness and very often low tolerance level, which is typical for much more organized approaches, by the way. But someone found it in definition of fire, and then I ended up in this volcanic basin, although I am nothing like these people. So obviously it has been misunderstood, the concept of anger and all of the reasons that can cause someone to get irritated. Rather, we would be talking about disagreement. And I don't like how far North territories found themselves in some kind of over-agreeable mode, and as a result have become today basically the synonym of notions as Titanic, as end of the world, as whole of the world, and things like that, holiness and things like that. No, they would more be with in reference of easygoing, for example, easygoing, because the civilizational normatives as we developed out of being much more pleased or problem solving oriented and develop for themselves a more pleasant lifestyle, appear to have more pleasant nature, and that would appear to the other side as too easy. Well, when something is closer to perfect, it might be too easy, but let's find you maintaining it, and where you're going to find yourself. In other words, none of the old societies have managed to pass the exam on providing a perfect organized society. So I really have no idea why they continue to call the other side of the equation easy, when none of them have managed to pass the degree, to deliver the performance by which still Northwest hold the throne, and North Hemisphere in general. So where I will need to correct the entire Northern Hemisphere is accepting as to be agreeable as their standard, and then throwing the fiery nature on the other side of the equation, and for buying for themselves on long term the carpet or walking carpet themselves as what they have become for the humanity today. And it is irritating that they continue to think that that is how they should be, that that is correct approach, and that then we talk about how they are going to solve that, the issue of dealing with not agreeable natures, with natures that do not agree to everything and anything. I have to find here that this entire matter become oversimplified. But human is nothing of that much simple protocol. Neither managing humanity should be that much simple. First of all, the degree of my disagreement would be defined by how much it would be there to disagree with. And it is not exactly the state we dream of. None of us. That is not what we expect to find in our lives. We all expect to find our life to be easy to us, so we don't need to argue too much about it. Yet I have noticed today that it has become some kind of world level game to make me, for fun purposes, or thinking that that is going to provoke my ongoing discussion, to irritate my nature, and then become very much symbol of squeezing lemon. When you irritate someone, you also that someone become discredited, and then you have access to free juice of lemon. I don't know how Europe is going to manage to find itself, the North Hemisphere is going to manage to find itself defined in these parameters. But that is exactly what is the latest challenge of Europe. To be lemon, not the juice of lemon. Because if you are juice of lemon but not the lemon, you cannot declare a throne. And if you cannot declare the throne, then you are not going to be the first to decide on anything. So I'm going to ask you to be much more careful what you're going to buy for yourself for another day. But if you cannot be this, I'm going to tell you once again, Serbia and whoever out there, if you cannot be this, you're not going to be monarch. Not because I have said it, but because no one else is going to buy it. And you're going to continue to waste your money and your resources, which nothing of yours is, by the way. So that means that you will continue to indebt yourself to the point where you are not going to be in position to return your debts. And that is what I'm going to ask you, Serbia, to start thinking about. And England, for that matter. It is not about what we are going to agree today about. It is about what this world is going to buy, what this world is going to accept, and what this world is not going to accept. And now you have your question. Today, monarchy of England and monarchy of Serbia. Who is the real monarch of today? It sounds similar as in that story. But I'm not the one insisting on it or trying to keep it forever. That's you. And I'm just the latest challenge. And you are not prepared for this. despite that legend being written how many centuries ago, you still appear England and Serbia as unprepared for the challenge. So who is the monarch of today, England and Serbia? And for that matter, Japan, India, China, and South America, and America. Yes, well, who is the monarch of today? Who is the monarch of today? Well, you have your question for today. I don't like anything how North Hemisphere has been found to drive itself. I don't like any of it. I don't like that personality. I don't like that character. These characters of slimy, ready-made imbeciles, waiting someone else to deliver it for them, or waiting, and then they declare and wasting their entire time and attention how to go around something. It just, I'm going to find it devastating for the entire historic heritage of Northern Hemisphere and humiliating in the same time. I'm going to say you do not have right to downright that match that region and the historic heritage of that region. I'm just going to say you, the latest player of North Hemisphere, you do not have right to continue to play or lead the North Hemisphere because you're doing a very bad job out of it. So I'm going to ask you to immediately resign and stop calling yourself leaders. You have not earned that degree. You continue to downplay the entire region, the entire hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere. I'm going to ask you to stop considering or playing leaders, to stop considering yourself for leaders and to stop playing leaders, because clearly that is not who you are when it is in question that continent. Obviously, to wish something or to aim something or to want something is not going to be enough of a criteria to be preceding force or leading force on something. Clearly, you need here the actual identity itself. The actual identity has been lost. I have to notice it has been lost. Either we talk about mother and son, or we talk about plus and minus, or we talk about black or white, or we talk about letter H. You have lost the actual identity of Northern Hemisphere. I'm going to find that fatal, because now the South Hemisphere is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And you are too weak, if I would rather say completely absent voice. It's like you are dying or about to die completely. And I'm going to question on what ground you dare to still talk in the name of what when you have lost almost everything. How on earth you still dare to talk about you leading something when you have lost everything? So, I'm not going to argue anymore Russia or America or Europe or whatever. I'm going to speak from now on North Hemisphere versus South Hemisphere. And then I'm going to ask you, North Hemisphere, how you're going to define yourself on first account. So yes, I'm going to notice how family has become very important module of European society, of what we have presumed as modern society, mostly being therefore centered again European levels. What is typical for Europe is families having tradition of families all over Europe, unlike in America where you have to notice families falling apart, where kids are living at a very early age and parents are being thrown in retirement villages all alone at a very earlier age. The breaking families in America became a synonym for losing civilization and losing happiness in life. We noticed that, I hope we noticed that family is actually critical driver and critical civilizational momentum and does not and should not go through such extreme stages of isolation, or what also we discovered to my devastation, even implementing some kind of competitiveness within the families, which is the latest event, obviously on the road of dedication to bring this civilization, to return this civilization at most earlier stages where families were not driving momentum, but the individual itself. Here it is. I'm going to notice danger of me overstating importance of individual in human protocol. But I was always comparing it versus some kind of street level of collectivism. And family continue to be much more on the individual side, on the protocol of individual, because it is still about personal matters versus outdoor, collective, community-driven, straight gang-driven system. My question of today is how Europe feel about family, and why in last century Russia spent enormous efforts to devastate families, and three-colored flag of Russia will continue to still hold to the same flag. I'm going to notice there is one colored flag with yellow color in this world, and that is the flag of Macedonia. In Macedonia, you have just yellow sun color, sun or son, the sun. That is next generation. I'm going to find that very dangerous, since we discovered today that there is some similarity between Tour de Fel of France and the latest one tower built instead of two towers in New York as a trade center. When you say it is trade center and about what they are going to trade, yes, but also it is about what they are ready to inaugurate and what they are ready to dance around as their symbol. I'm going to notice now that we are talking about value system in the same time as on this planet. It exists that peculiar momentum where the about to be humans are dancing around what they are going to acquire as a value system. It is clearly the event of consuming something or celebrating someone before to be consumed and taking over the properties of it. It is creaturehood to its highest point, or to its most defining point. And we were thinking we are humans. So therefore, to be aware, it is nothing of innocent. The fact that two towers, trading towers in New York, have been replaced with one tower as a trading center. That it is in substance profoundly Muslim-driven event. That it is reflect degree of Muslimization of America. That is returning us to identifying Muslim societies as having not resolved issues, identity issues, and are therefore bringing our attention today to Muslim territories and us questioning and what exactly our Muslim world is centered around. And we are going to ask today Muslim world to elaborate to us of the real meaning of Mecca, and therefore what would be their real true identity. Where also we have recognized that Muslim very much sounds as Muslim. And then we have for some reason Now Princess Catherine of England, not exactly appearing as an accident. And it really has nothing to do with Beckham's. Really, honestly, truly. I highly apologize for any inconvenience, but I have to do my work. Equally as you have to do your work for another day, and you are very proud and feel honorable for your professional dedications. Do not deny the same to someone else. I have to do my work and I have to notice things. That is my duty call. And it is higher than just professional call. It is a different kind of call. I need to notice that the way how Princess Catherine is being made to look, and the way how Diana before her, which was rather chubby when she was younger, how she was made to look alike, became very much a synonym for body image that would be representing that concept of tour de femme, but behind that more slim concept. And it is time that we ask, what is the real meaning of more slim? And why they tend to recruit our kids as the latest fashion into such platform. That is going to also bring us discussing Russia from perspective of prevalence of white army in last century, although it was all allegedly done in the name or under the aura of Red Army. Actually, Red Army was consumed, again similar phenomenon as bulls in Spain. It's like bringing the symbol of your food or the one that you consume, celebrating the one that you are about to consume. In that degree, killing Navalny was rather provocation. Provocation to Putin and his dedication to go and stand against Nazism. I am afraid, however, that we might not find here a sword with two sharp ends in that equation, or that behind that entire allegedly hunting Nazism might be Muslim society and Muslim capital, which would be driving towards Muslim as well. And that is why Russia is very a big country, and I just wanted to prevent such oversimplified approach to drive actions of such big territory. Nothing on this planet is that simple. So our answers cannot afford to be that much simple. We cannot afford that much simple answers. We simply cannot afford such obscure elaboration on someone's high level of dedication, with high level of equipment, high level of military arsenal, and such obscure elaboration. Such obscure elaboration does not match the size of the dedication and the power behind it. And I pledge I will be confronting it with the complexity on daily basis. And do not take it personally. There is nothing personal in the way how we have been brought, our kind, on this planet. There is nothing personal here. Don't take it personally. It is duty call by our own making. God level. This world is not simple, and neither we are. And not any simple discussion of today is going to win a day and declare winning position or entitlement position. Accept your title of a puppy or a poodle today, Europe, for another day. Russia is going to be accused for destroying my family and making my family members to go against me as a hypnotized bunch of fools. And Russia today cannot take for themselves no any other degree but bunch of hypnotized fools. And that is quite dangerous for someone declaring that much of a military arsenal. Not that it can be done that much of a credit to the other side of the equation, where to do get mixed with done or being done. And they still think that they're at to do level. Am I supposed to choose my horse, maybe? I'm not joking. I'm asking normal question. Am I supposed to choose my horse? But I wanted to talk about importance of family and about how far in Europe has been made profound mistake of going after families, while that is in the same time the most important qualitative stamp mark of Europe. Europe cannot afford to go after families. Speaking in some kind of traditional ways where things were moving in a slow motion, not today with such speed. It is harder to speak about family standard when families have lost that level of sense to represent a standard. We still would be talking about much more stable cultural, religious, or overall development factors that would not be too much jumping into extreme, and then we talk family. When one talk family, does still have in perspective a much more standard defining protocol within parameters of certain cultural identity, political identity, territorial integrity. Well, that is what family is a molecule of a society. And society is territorial event, it's cultural event, it's historic event. So in that context, I'm speaking about family with a sense of less disturbing factors. On personal level, not as from outside perspective, from perspective of the family members. From perspective of family members. As to personal habits, preferences, taste, value systems, characters, things like that. What makes a family to be, what makes to be possible, factors that would not make would make family to be much more kind of integral part of society, rather to be upsetting element for the society and upsetting element for the members. Here I'm going to rate region again, territories, that if they exist in some kind of crossing cultural crossroads, then you will have the element of mixed families. However, within cultural setting that is, as for example, Mediterranean, although you have different cultural settings, they're somehow all integrated within the similar cultural sentiment. So it is not traumatic to bring family within such kind of similar cultural sentiment. Although when you have different religions, for example, it is making it harder, and that family become much more. It stands out. It's much harder to be ignored or to be accepted. However, international factors became important. So religion, as I have understood, in my case scenario also, has not been enough of an excuse to keep things closer. Religion, in my case scenario, was not enough to cover up the cultural differences inherited within the genetics and within the preferences. And I have been ignorant to preferences. I thought you can change preferences. I was wrong. In contrary, they have become more dubious, more on the surface, and the family become more start more members start departing as they get older, because preferences have not changed, because they have not managed to respect each other preferences, but actually have grown more in their own preferences, in their own choices. And that is where family breaks. Well, family have not succeeded to overcome such more identity driven, embodied within the genetics cultural records preferences. Now also it became much more fashion. In fashion, Barbie is stupid, and the one that are trading the Barbies are not stupid. Excuse me. And why then we would be trading the stupid one? Why we would not be trading the one that is of more value? Well, isn't it not that we are trading the value? Unless the one that are trading are nothing as a more valuable, but exactly opposite, less valuable. Well, that is why you have ended to need something else in order to justify your own presence and existence. If you had been self-sufficient, there would be no criminal on this planet. But the criminal appears on this planet because the subjects at the initial point are not self-sufficient to survive on their own, which means they are less, not more. Which means that ultimately Barbie is more, not less. Why? Because it is Nordic element. A Nordic element is additional value, not devalue, but plus value. Nordic element is plus value, not minus value. So why on earth we go in America and Barbie is perceived as less value? And why on earth that would be less of value? When the entire Renaissance, including the entire making of white men, is about intellectual, intelligent approach to life. Well, the rest of the cultures do not think like that. They think opportunism, they think making money, they think getting power and getting powerful. And then they end up with African animals walking next to in a ranking. And then we end up asking ourselves each century the code of human. Because some people do not give them about the code of human. But we in Europe, we have been always giving a damn about it. And that is how white men differ from black men. Because black man does not give a damn about code of human, and white man gives a damn about code of human. And that is the profound difference. So when you talk about Barbie, let's bring ourselves to a bit more of a thinking, a bit more of a complexity than go after simplicity. You talk about add-on value. What add-on value that would be exactly we are talking about? Well, that is the question to black societies that are going after gold and after nothing else but the gold. And when they get there, they're nothing interested about nothing else but showing off the gold. And we close the circle. Or they close the circle with the monkeys for sure. You're never going to get them questioning the code of human. No, they're going to question the code of money. That is black society. I wanted to talk about families, therefore. What makes a difference between Europe and America is what is causing that we lose family in America. In Europe, we look after our older members, they still live in the family. In America, that's not the case. So what makes difference on genetic line between Europe and America is what causes devastation of family. Egocentric approach, megalomaniac approach, less intelligent approach, less sensitive, ultimately less sensitive approach. And of course you lose family. Of course in such conditions you lose family. And of course we find ourselves on tribunal societies where no one talks about families. There is just about individuals. Tribunal societies do not have families. They have tribes. And everyone mixed with everyone else. And they're trading the members. And they're jumping over each other as animals. So do not tell me that Europe is going to awaken in tribunal societies. No, Europe is today going to return to discussing a family. And that is how we find monarchy again. And do not forget our word of today. Complexity instead of simplicity. In the way how we think, in the way how we talk. In the way how we exist, in the way how we sign, in the way how we certify our protocol. We are not going to certify our protocol to simplicity of anything, including our genders. Yes, our genders are not simple. Therefore, it's not based on simple definitions. Accordingly, we talk about intelligent approach in bringing human forward. We talk about complexity. And complexity when you have two genders, not when you have one gender. And when you notice what is the difference between one gender and another gender in a complex way. And when you notice the importance of family. And when you notice why gender is important. And why men and female are being physically made different. And why we talk about physically matching point. Because it is about making family, not about two people living together. When it is about two people being in a friendship, we call that friendship. You don't need to sleep together to be friends. You're not going to talk while you're sleeping. Excuse me? You're not talking while you're sleeping. You relate to same gender person as you're relating to a friend. You call that friendship. And you devote certain time of your day or a week or whatever, certain dynamic where you're going to meet your friend and talk to your friend. You don't need to sleep with your friend because it does not make any sense. Sleeping is alone, is individual approach as equally as it is eating. You don't eat in two. Are you eating in two? No, you're eating in one. You're eating as individual, but that is how you sleep as well. So you don't need another person in order to sleep or in order to eat. You need another person when you are about to make kids. So marriage is institution of family about making kids. That is all what it is. It is not about sex, because there is no such thing as sex. There is eating, sleeping, working, being creative. Our aspirations and sense of self-realizations are not in sleeping with someone, but unless, of course, you talk about prostitution industry, which is a profession. Otherwise, our self-realization is building ourselves within certain professional standards and functioning and self-realizing yourself by such professional standards. So you exist on parameters of maintaining yourself as a main parameter in your existence. Entire existence is self-realization of your aspirations, of your perceptions of how you want to build yourself as a person. Then comes the other side here, which is making family. Marriage happens as a dedication to make family and not as a dedication to your active sex life, which, by the way, will never be sex if it is of two same body making. I can't believe I need to talk about this. This is more kind of brainwashing event. And the stupidity of human masses. Mass. That's not even integrated. Continue to plug into it like crazy, suicidal insects. So therefore there is no such thing as sex. There is such thing as self-realization via intelligent approaches to our rather intelligently built individual presence. So what is our challenge is that we be challenged by our mind, not via our sex. There is nothing to be challenged via the sex, but there is everything to be challenged via our mind. So the main event in the human protocol is not sex, that's animal level. The main event in human protocol is mind. And human is challenged and provoked or motivated by its creative mental. Let's forget about creative. Let's talk about proper, productive, functional, aspirational, motivational, beautiful, for some of us obviously much more design related, much more creative mental dimension. That is what is the most important in our lives, is our self-realization, where we become also enough build up to start thinking, making family, and bringing much more complex environment in your self-realization. It is emotional complexity. It is complexity in the way of how you realize yourself, how you engage yourself, how you relate. A relationship become matter of building your also sense of security, sense of belonging, sense of building your own a reflection of who you have become. Marriage is not about two people living together. Marriage is making family and making kids. For what God created two different making of bodies? For a reason, not without a reason. Personality is suited for the role in the family. One personality is female personality, which means therefore equally physically as organ, as physical organ, to bring a certain role in the family, and the other is as a physical and as a psychological, as a engagement related presence, therefore physically suited as well. It's perfect example of how one make family. Why on earth that has been challenged? Why on earth that has been challenged? Why? Well, because someone would like to destroy it. What else? And why else? If not because someone would like to destroy it. So we are going to conclude our planet is under attack on any possible level. And stupidity is not the way to respond to that attack. I want Europe answering to this question with their over-agreeable nature. And then we are going to talk about the stamp and about monarchy as well. Excuse me. It looks to me a bit of a stretch for a time being. And when I think of this tower of Tour de Fel, I just think what a perfect demonstration of what I'm doing at the moment. What clear imagery of one speaking and everyone else listening. So I'm going to set a bit some kind of a reservation to what I have said about the previous replacing of 2 trading towers in New York with a 1 tower. Yes, it's still better to ask a 1 tower for what? 1 tower in what function? It has become some kind of memorial center, as I understand. Well, I wouldn't find that that much of indicative of where the entire event should be moving. It remains too much on a depth rather than new beginning. So let's clarify that you start using symbols that are being built on this planet in correct terms, because they will stay for centuries ahead. And let's do not make such colossal mistakes of the time being. We should be stamping our time with enough integrity and enough responsibility, or we would not be worthy living the times.